So Rob, I heard recently that the folks involved in direct sourcing in the U.S. are pioneering something new. That this is a new service, a new offering in the market. But I've known you a long time, and I've heard you talk about direct sourcing going back several years. So I'm curious how you feel about that notion.
Well, yes, it is one of my favourite topics, and I'm quite passionate about it. But you're also correct; it isn't new. So direct sourcing in its various guises has been around for a while. Actually, although you did say like new here, and yes, it hasn't been as prevalent in the US. I first got involved in it in about 2005. I was involved in two services, a life sciences and a banking client, where we launched direct sourcing in Europe. And they're both still live today. I think that's like 15 years they've been running over here. But I moved to the US with Hayes 3 years ago. And the conversation about direct sourcing kind of started around then. So yes, it is new here, but it has been going for an extended period of time elsewhere.
It sounds to me it's a bit like something old that's trying to be made new again. Like we're outside of a music venue here. You hear the same thing with music often. You know, the new kids think they've got something new, but in fact it's just a repeat.
Yeah, I mean, my favourite music, I like house music. And lots of people say house music was invented in the 80s, but of course it wasn't. House music is an evolution of disco, which was in the 70s. And direct sourcing is the same thing. I mean, direct sourcing as a service or a name or a label might be relatively new. But what it's doing is it's taking all the experience, the techniques and the technologies that have been used by talent acquisition and permanent hiring, and to be honest, staffing and recruitment businesses in their internal recruitment as well, or their recruitment for their clients. And it's taking those techniques and it's using it for a new application. The application for an individual client or an individual segment, but a lot of the infrastructure and the techniques are sound and proven.
Gotcha. So, I mean, in a lot of ways, it sounds a bit like you're referring to it's a new label. Early on, this was referred to as contingent RPO.
Yeah.
So it sounds like they were just sort of using some of the same RPO tactics that have been used for a while.
Yeah, I actually lie. I mean, direct sourcing is the name that's tending to be used. I actually think RPO for contingent actually is a better descriptive label. I mean, we over-label a number of things, but I think that does describe it quite well. It's taking those techniques and applying it just to a different population.
Gotcha. Okay. So the fact that it has been around for a while, and the fact that these are sort of older processes being applied to something else, why does that matter?
Firstly, you say older processes. Yes, older processes, but obviously new techniques and evolution thereof. So good infrastructure, but again, like why? Who cares? So what? We often speak to our clients and of what everyone's looking for. They're looking for innovation, but at the same time, often that magic proven innovation. You know, the unicorn, or in recruitment, we have that phrase, the purple squirrel that everyone's looking for. Direct sourcing arguably is that purple squirrel. It is something that is new to the market, will allow you a competitive advantage against some of your competition, but you're not going out on a limb. It's proven, it's sustainable, it's long term, it has been done elsewhere. You know it will work if applied correctly. So it is arguably that famous purple squirrel that everyone's looking for.
So as far as the myth that this is something new and we're breaking new ground, your reaction to that?
It's not new. It has been around for a while.
Very good. Thanks so much.
No problem.
So Craig, everybody says direct sourcing is so complicated. What's your take on that?
Well, Alyssa, I wouldn't necessarily say it's complicated, but it's certainly not easy. So, like everything, you need to define a strategy, and with that, you need to start somewhere. So you need to take a look at, your demand planning. What kind of hiring are you going to be doing over the next 12 months, 24 months? What's that look like? Start segmenting that out and look at what roles are going to have the greatest impact and ROI for direct sourcing in your business.
Okay. Well, then you make that sound easy. Is it easy?
Again, I wouldn't say it's necessarily easy, but it requires some experience. So we're standing outside of Coors Field where the Rockies play, and I liken it to building out a sports team, a championship-winning team. You need to really have somebody that has the experience in doing this, right? So you've got experience, an experienced person or individual leading this, but underneath them and supporting them is an experienced and diversified team that can really help you deliver all the kind of discrete aspects and components of a direct sourcing program.
Okay, so then as far as the myth goes that it's complicated but easy?
Not exactly. I mean, I think what you need to do is lean on an experienced partner, right? So you need somebody who's done it before, and like we talked about earlier, this isn't new. So it's not going to be super challenging to find somebody out there, a partner that's done this before and shown and proven some success. So my recommendation would be to go find somebody who can help you along the way and lean on them for input, direction.
Gotcha. All right. I guess that's the deal.
Thanks, Alyssa.
Yeah.
So apparently, the past couple of years, there's been a lot of platforms coming out surrounding direct sourcing. And depending on who you talk to, they say the technology can actually make or break the direct sourcing in itself. What do you think about that?
Well, two things. One, yes, the technology is an important part. It is the enabler behind it, right? You have to have some form of technology to do some of the outreach, some of the engagement strategy, but it's not the main thing. And I think that's where people go wrong. They start down a conversation about direct sourcing and they start talking about technology. And while the technology is important, like I said, it's the service that makes or breaks the delivery on it. So really, it's about the people delivering the service. As I always tell people, I don't ask my accountant which software he uses to do my taxes. I just expect him to do them well, and he has the tools in his trade to do what he does. And direct sourcing is the same way. For us, we've got programs where we've deployed separate CRMs just to focus on the direct sourcing. Others, we're just using in-house technology to manage it. And in both cases, we've been very, very successful. So while technology is important, I think we're led astray when we take the conversation directly to the technology before talking about things like attraction strategies, employer value proposition, and how we're going to find and engage the talent.
Sure. So with that being said, what else is there besides just, those tech platforms that we're talking about? Is there, a roundabout way of actually going and finding and engaging without the tech platform, or you actually need that to assist you along the way?
You definitely need technology. I mean, we're in a tech-enabled world, right? I mean, whether it's SMS text messaging through to social media advertising, all of that needs to be a part of the overall strategy. But if that's the only part you focus on, you'll probably do about maybe 5 to 10% of your talent acquisition through direct sourcing. If you wrap around that a really good service with people that are engaging with the talent and building those relationships and keeping them engaged, then the two working together is how you get to 50, 60, 70, 80% direct sourcing.
Right. With that being said, that's the Myth Busted, where it's all about technology.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Rob, in direct sourcing, the first thing that comes up after direct sourcing is mentioned is typically curation or curation partners. What is that, and how does that actually fit into direct sourcing? What does curation mean in this context?
Well, obviously, this is something that two of us have helped a lot. And on my conveniently available tablet here, I actually have the definition of curate. So to curate is to select, organise, and look after the items in a collection or exhibition. You'll notice there it's quite passive and it's very one way. Right? Does this sound like the kind of experience that you'd want to deliver for the people that you want to work for your organisation?
Well, no. It also described a lot of objects.
Yes. Very much about inanimate objects. However, I can suggest an alternative for you. So, interestingly, the definition of engage. The definition of engage is to occupy, attract, or involve someone's interest or attention. Right? Immediately two-way, right? Immediately the kind of a different kind of experience for you, and much more of a human experience.
Sure. So you're suggesting then that people would rather be engaged than curated?
Yeah, I mean, we're here on a college campus, right? Like, thinking back to your time at college, do you remember the professor who curated you, right? Or do you remember the professor that engaged with you? Yeah, the professor that engaged with you, that class sounds like more something that you're going to go back to, you're going to learn more from. And it's the same with direct sourcing, the same with talent management as well. I mean, there's numerous statistics around, but people don't make decisions on the first interaction. In sales, the stats are around things like, people buy on their 8th interaction, 12th, 22nd interaction, depending on which research you do. Same with joining a company. Very rare for someone to go apply for an advert, look at an advert, and immediately say, I'd like to work for that organisation. They want to research the organisation. They want to develop some kind of understanding of the organisation and the role. That's what engagement within direct sourcing does.
So Bradley, we've heard that direct sourcing might not ever work here, or that it's going to take a while to catch on. What have you seen?
Well, I've heard of some other companies that they said it would never work, and it was a new idea that no one was going to bother to use, but yet it's taken off. And I think direct sourcing is very much the same way. As we talked about in the first myth, it's not necessarily a new offering to the broader industry, but it is new in the US, and
Yeah, it reminds me of a story. I guess it was going on about 6 years ago. We had a client that was a Hays client from Europe that we sat down with in the US, and I was told in no uncertain terms direct sourcing would never work here. The market will reject it. We cannot do it. We should not even consider it. Fast forward about 3 or 4 years, and we finally got them to consider using direct sourcing. And I'm happy to say that last quarter we filled 80% of their jobs through direct sourcing. So the idea that it won't work here is just a bit of, it's not how we've done things. And much like people used to say we don't wear seatbelts, well, we now wear seatbelts. We've moved past that. We figured out better ways. And I think direct sourcing is another example of that.
Awesome. Okay, so that's good for the client, but what about the supplier?
Well, it is good for the client. I mean, the client's getting better access to talent more quickly at oftentimes a lower rate. But the question often does get raised. Well, we're going to upset the suppliers. Why would we want to do that? Why do we want to upset the suppliers? And I've got two reactions to that. One is it's a better mousetrap. And if we have access to a better mousetrap, we should use it. And the industry as a whole is going to have to learn to adapt to it. That said, there's always a need for suppliers in a program. You're never going to fill 100% of the jobs through your direct sourcing effort. So the proper way to do it is you segment out what is appropriate for direct sourcing and where you need your niche suppliers. When you do that, you give the suppliers better visibility into the roles that they're going to need to be filling. The direct sourcing team knows the roles that they're going to be filling, and your suppliers actually end up with a better percentage of fills because they're focused on something smaller. So it means you may have a smaller supply chain for the program, but they're going to have a more focused attention on the jobs that they're trying to fill.
Okay, Bradley, so when it comes to the myth that direct sourcing won't work here, what do you say?
Definitely not true. Much like the four that have preceded it today, this just isn't true. We've got plenty of examples of where direct sourcing is working and working very well in the U.S. market. And if we expand that out to other regions of the globe, we can see that it's a very effective means of acquiring talent for clients.
Awesome. Looks like we just busted yet again another myth.
Thank you for joining us as we dispelled 5 myths about direct sourcing. Number 1, it isn't new. Number 2, it isn't complicated. Number 3, it isn't all about the technology. Number 4, it isn't about curation. And number 5, it can and it will work here. Overall, direct sourcing offers significant advantages to those organisations who are willing to embrace it. So don't get caught on the outside looking in.